Okay, back to this. So let me bring me and my guest up on the screen again. We have a very interesting podcast for you guys, and we have a celebrity guest showing up, and I'm going to introduce him a little bit. He's a seasoned veteran of the brutal Bering Sea crab fishery, starting out as a hardworking deckhand and engineer aboard one of the most iconic vessels in the fleet, the Cornelia Marie, where he battled massive waves, freezing conditions, and the relentless grind of Alaskan king and paleo crab seasons. Driven by ambition and the call of command, he eventually left the high-stakes Alaska scene to captain his own boat, taking on the treacherous waters off the Oregon coast in pursuit of Dungeness crab. Holy hell, here we go. There he helmed a converted 76-foot powerhouse, navigating unpredictable storms, treacherous sandbars, and a notorious Dungeon Cove bar that has claimed actual lives and vessels alike. Very dangerous here, folks. Known for his no-nonsense attitude, sharp focus on safety, like keeping a vigilant eye on rogue waves that could flip a boat in an instant, and his deep roots in the commercial fishing world, he appeared across multiple chapters of the Deadliest Catch franchise, embodying the grit, risk, and raw determination that define men who chase the sea's most dangerous harvest on Discovery Channel's Deadliest Catch. I'm going to bring him out right now, and he's needless to say, he really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to bring him out right now. How's it going, Mark?
Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. How you guys doing?
Good. Let's bring you up on stage. So you're at sea right now?
I'm at sea right now, yeah.
Okay, and what's the name of your boat?
My boat's the Rondies, so obviously, like with the introduction there, I started on the Cornelia Marie and took over my own boat, the Galloway Bay, and then actually kind of did a full circle, and now I'm back on the Bering Sea. But yeah, just crab fishing and staying busy.
Damn. Okay. And what is your name and what is your title? Like, what do you do?
So my name is Mark Sehlbach, captain of the fishing vessel Rondies. I was engineer and co-captain on the Cornelia Marie, and then obviously captained my boat, the Galloway Bay. Have a lot of experience, actually fifth generation fisherman. Done everything from logging to firefighting to the military to crab fishing. So kind of a seek after anything that would be considered a manly job.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to, I tried to, I actually have a degree in mechanical engineering. So I actually designed fire trucks for a little bit. And I tried the office job and actually got fired because I spent too much time out in the shop welding and fabricating. So.
Oh, nice. So definitely not an EBT government welfare position at all for you. I see.
No. If it's manual labor, I'll do it.
Good stuff, man. I don't think that they make men like you anymore. Not to like sit here and say I'm glazing you, but I'm just saying, like, basically, like, we've met before and we've had conversations. You remind me of the comedian from the Watchmen series. That's literally who you remind me of, and that actor who played the comedian. Because I do think that you have a no nonsense approach. Right out the gate, I'm going to ask you a question real quick. So I had seen a clip of you talking about mutinies at ship, and that these laws are still, I would say, intact for the seas. So describe to me what these laws are. If like one person says, no, fuck no, I'm not doing it, screw this, or a couple people say this, what are the laws at sea? Are they still intact? Like, what are they? Are they fictitious things that, people have just said during story time hour?
No, actually, the laws of the Admiralty law was basically put together, the 1700s by the British noble, and aristocrats and everything else. And that's because Britain was governing the entire world's oceans at the time. And so they established law, gentlemanly law, so to speak. And a lot of those laws still apply to this day. Granted, there has been some modifications and amendments and things of that nature, but technically, and this was actually tried not too long ago in the 90s, there was a mutiny at sea, and the captain actually locked his entire crew in a fish hold in like 30 degrees and fed them Snickers bars and kept them there for 2 weeks until he made port. And it actually appeared on hard copy, and we actually gave, the nickname hard copy. But technically, if you are out here, you are the captain. This is your world. You have ultimate control, ultimate say. If there is technically a mutiny, you have all right to be, executioner, judge, everything carried out, because they're messing in your world. So, I jokingly say, if I catch people, and it's not even jokingly, I mean, I've done it. If I catch people asleep at the wheel, I will literally just break their jaw. I don't care. Just because that person, when they're on watch, they're responsible for not just my life, but the rest of the crew's life and the safety of the boat. And we are literally at our weakest times where we're all asleep, placing our trust in that one person. So if that person falls asleep, they're going to be eaten through a straw for a while.
Okay. So I have a question, because you mentioned executioner. Can you legally hang somebody at sea?
Yep. Yeah. You actually technically still could. And you probably catch some in the U.S. You would catch some heck for it, and there'd be a huge investigation. But yeah, you technically, from what I've seen of the Admiralty laws, there hasn't really been an amendment to that one.
So I think that if you hang somebody, this would serve as a deterrent for other seas, like even back in the days in the 1500s, at seas, that they would see these bodies and be like, oh shit, and maybe a deterrent for the rest of the crewmates on the ship. And they probably see this. Not only would this serve as a deterrent, but this would be kind of like a scarecrow, so to speak, from anybody that wants to have a mutiny or kind of challenge your authority and leadership on the ship.
Almost definitely. If you look at, you take, mutiny on the Bounty for one. That's one that people know about. Everybody said that Captain Bligh should have probably hung somebody, because stereotypically when they would hang somebody for mutiny, they would leave them aloft in the rigging for multiple days, and to do exactly that, act as a deterrent. And, people suggested that, the reason he didn't do it is because of his friend was the mutinous person was Fletcher Christian, his friend. And he just was, kind of going easy on him, and you see where that got him. So, but yeah, that was common practice with, back in the day, especially among like privateers, pirates, as we know them. If they had mutinous people, they would literally string them right up and hang them from the yardarms and leave them there.
Wow. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, there's some documented cases where they've actually, tied people to what they called grape shot, and would like literally, basically take cannonballs, strap them to them, and push them off the plank, and they'd go to Davy Jones' locker. So, yeah, it it was pretty brutal. I mean, you think about slavery in the U.S. and people being whipped. Well, imagine, being an English merchantman, or naval person, back in the 17 and even, 1800s, even in the U.S., punishment by cat o' nine tails, which is basically, a whip with 9 tails or 12 or 16. And a lot of times they would have metal. So, you would literally be cleaved and have flesh removed from your back. I mean, they'd strap you up to one of the boards and, you'd take 6, 9, 10, 12 shots, whatever the captain decided.
Wow, that's crazy. So it's you're seeing that world. But that's such a crazy world that you live in, because a lot of people probably can't even understand the discipline or even the workload that it takes to even manage your ship, let alone be on your ship. So back to this, I do want to ask a question about this. What inspired you to pursue a career in commercial fishing, and how did your early life experience shape that decision?
Yeah, so, I kind of grew up around commercial fishing. The last thing I actually wanted to be was a commercial fisherman, just because my father was, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this. So, I was kind of pushed along the side of being a firefighter. So that's actually where I thought my life was going to take me. And at the same time, I wanted to go to college. My family really didn't have a lot of money. So I was like, well, I'll join the National Guard. And, this is 1997, 98 actually. And and then we can go down that road. But, coming back from all my other things, one, I kind of felt like I had a duty to my family to kind of carry on this tradition. Two, I liked the camaraderie. I liked the structure. I looked at other jobs and I was like, I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of like pansy bitches. Excuse my language, but I couldn't do it.
No, you're good.
I tried that, I tried the everyday 9 to 5 life. I tried, all of it. And I was just like, wow, I'm surrounded by a bunch of weak people, weak-minded people that couldn't think outside the box, people that didn't have the motivation, didn't have the drive, I couldn't do it with my life. I was like, man, there's too much more that I myself personally want to, ascertain. And I want to see the people around me like do the same thing. And that's kind of what has got me back into it and kept me in it.
Yeah, it's interesting when we say that we don't want to be surrounded by death and fear and dead men, basically, because these men, they're already dead. Like, and that's the thing, though, is like when I worked for the government at the time that I had met you, who was a dead man already, because they're the person that doesn't watch their six. They don't have situational awareness. And that's the person that's going to have your not back, so to speak, when it comes to this. I imagine it's the same thing getting on board one of your ships and somebody falling asleep on the wheel, somebody not pulling their weight, maybe even that. I don't even think those people will last long in your world, because you'll filter them out like a good father would, right? You would say, no, you can't date my daughter. But we miss good dads in the world. Like, this is one thing that we're missing. The filter that brings men around, they get vetted by this man who's a good man, who's traditional, maybe conservative at the time, and also has these values. Dare I even say Christian ethical systems. Speaking of which, you're a father right now, and you are a family man, correct?
Correct, yeah. I actually have multiple kids, and actually have my toddler out here with me right now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I mean, I come from a very Christian background, where the father leads, the man leads. And unfortunately, in my time, in my 46 years, I've seen so many lost souls when it, come to speak, when it comes to men who don't have that guiding force, that guiding light, that somebody to look up to. You and I, Mateo, both know somebody like that. And I see it as kind of my job as a man in this world, especially a Christian man, to pass on that knowledge, that faith, that motivation. And it's the hard stuff. I mean, we literally just had an issue on the boat not too long ago. And even though we have laws and regulations, I said, let's forget about the contract. I go, you guys basically want to test the waters. Like, let's do this, you two fight it out. And then, then you guys are going to take on, one of you is going to take me on, whoever wins your guys' fight is going to take me on. And then we're going to see who's got the biggest set of balls around. And,
Nice.
they just looked at me and, their eyes got huge and they're like, well, you're the captain. I was like, hey, I own the boat. So what I say is good, and if I say this is okay, this is okay. And I was like, it's ready. It's time for you guys to put your, money where your mouth is. Let's get this, let's rumble. And it was funny because, one of the persons was just, I don't think he's ever had that in his life. He's never had another man stand up to him and say, okay, let's do this. And to me, you are not a good man unless you're willing to back up your words, and if you can't, I don't care if you're going to have your, behind handed to you or not, you do it just for principle, and unfortunately there's so many people out there, especially men, that don't have that drive anymore, that don't feel it's necessary to prove who they are. And that's the one thing I love about this industry, because out here, we're not only battling Mother Nature, but we're battling, each other because it's a confined space. Everybody's getting on each other's nerves. It's a dangerous job, but it forces you to really look into the pits of who you are, what your morals and values are. And it inspires you to become a stronger, more convicted individual.
That sounds cool. I like the fact that it sounds like there's some old school traditional values at hand on the ship. And then not to mention this, but I want maybe to jog your memory a little bit and then go back even deeper on this whole issue. This is kind of surface level questioning, but like on your ship, what's the craziest situation that you've experienced out at sea with your men?
I'd say the biggest thing, the craziest thing, interpersonal problems. I had a couple guys pull knives on each other, and they were basically going to stab each other and go for it. And I leaped off of like the second story and basically just hammer fisted both of them and then proceeded to fuck them both up. Excuse my language. But I'm the fisherman. That's my excuse. And, and basically put them in their place, and that was probably the craziest thing. Cause they were definitely willing on killing each other. They've been pushed to the brink to where their interpersonal skills had broken down completely. And they were definitely ready to take them out or take each other out. So that was kind of I had to step up and to me at that time, it was like, okay, I got to save these guys from being idiots and doing something stupid. The other time, we actually had a female that set up a couple crew members due to some things. And luckily we had camera systems on board, and those two crew members that were arrested and accused of something, I was able to prove them not guilty. And then the other thing, I went through a huge storm where literally everybody thought they were going to die, including myself. The waves were,
damn,
I don't know, 100 feet. We actually had a huge super tanker next to us, and he thought he was in a sink. I thought I was in a sink. We spent days in basically the middle of a hurricane. And everybody thought we were dead for a couple of days. Our EPIRB went off, life raft stuff, debris. Coast Guard was out looking for us, made the news. And then we pop up out of nowhere and we're like, hey, we're still alive. So it was pretty interesting.
What was that when you had to retrieve, like, I saw something where you had to retrieve like some like pots or something, and you're able to retrieve one, but the other two, the waves are so wild, you guys are like, we're not going to risk that? Or was that a different time?
Yeah, so it was a different time. That was during dungy fishing, and a lot of guys don't like the push to the limit. Me, I'm like, well, I know where the crab are probably in there, so I'll push the limit. I've been doing this a long time, so I know what the boat can take and what the crew can take, but I also know that when it's time to stop. It's like everybody was like, pots are replaceable, but lives aren't. And that's the truth. You can replace a boat, you can replace gear, but you can't replace a life. So you got to know, being a captain, when to put your pride aside or the chase of money and everything else, and value yourself and the crew.
So out at sea, are there contingency plans for rescues? Do you guys do rescues at sea? And do you guys do drills?
Yeah, so it's actually mandatory. The Coast Guard mandatory, makes it mandatory that we train once a month. So we'll do, fire, man overboard, taking on water, obviously abandoned ship, Here in the Bering Sea, we're pretty lucky. The Coast Guard is amazing up here. The men and women that serve up here are truly some of the best in the world, I think. And they've rescued me before. I got a nice scar on my head where I got hit by a crab pot. I have a nice steel plate in my head. They've saved my life, and they've saved my father's life. They've saved thousands of lives. So they're amazing people. When we were doing other fisheries out in the Pacific, you pretty much, your only rescue is yourself. So when you get that far out in the ocean, the soonest somebody could maybe get to you would be a week, and by that time you're going to be dead. So it doesn't really matter.
So I have a question. So you're the star of Deadliest Catch that I see. And on this podcast, we want to go through the lives of the celebrity guests that we bring on board. How did you get discovered by Discovery? No pun intended. Or did you just happen to just submit an application to be on the show, or did they find you?
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. I can technically talk about this now because my contract's up. Which is good. So, yeah, I mean, the truth of it is, so the Cornelia Marie had a really long history. Obviously, everybody knows the history of it. And Phil and my dad were personal friends. They were motorcycle riders together, if you want to put it the legal way. Anyways, and I knew Casey McManus, his dad, Jimmy, and I've known Casey for a long time. And I knew Josh from when he was very young.
Nice.
So they actually, they couldn't get qualified to run their boat via insurance. The insurance wouldn't accept them. So I actually went over there as the captain and was what we call the paper captain, I guess, because I was the one that could get insured, and that was why they could go out and gain the knowledge they needed to get qualified with the insurance company. And luckily for my dad, or luckily for me, my father, and a couple very prominent people in the industry had kind of groomed me from a very young age to be a captain. So I was kind of ahead of the curve in that way.
Nice.
So Discovery was kind of stuck with me after that. They wanted the Cornelia Marie, and they had to have me.
So you were part and parcel with that whole deal. Okay, my next question is, how has being a husband and father influenced your approach to the high-risk world of crabbing? Because a lot of people who are married men and who have things to lose, which you can't replace your family, would say that they wouldn't get into, I would say, industries such as yours. And what lessons have you learned about balancing family with your career, Mark?
Wow, that's a tough one. I will definitely say with my past jobs, I mean, everything from contracting to, working for the government, military, to firefighting, I was definitely a lot more of a go-getter, I guess. I didn't expect to live past the year at 25. To be honest with you, if you would ask me when I was 21, 22, I'd be like, I'm going to be dead by 25. And then when I hit 25, I was like, maybe I'll make it 30. And to make it 46, I'm like, man, every day after this is a gift by God. Because I've cheated death way too many times. It's definitely made me, I mean, I have my toddler up here, my 5-year-old with me right now. And, obviously we're in town, and there he is. He's over there singing.
Nice.
But it's definitely made me a lot more reserved. I definitely think things through a little bit more than I normally would. Just because I know that my kids depend on me,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always kind of looked at my crew as kind of my own children. So I kind of treated them the same. I'd never asked my guys to do something that I wouldn't do. I always tried to lead by example. Now though I'm being honest with you, having my family around and even me, I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention to weather a little bit more and maybe not push the boat as hard. I would say after that, I love this industry. I mean, it's a family industry. You look at it and there's multiple generations. You come up here during the summer and you see, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, grandparents. I mean, you see generation after generation. That's the one thing about the fishing industry. It's kind of like farming, where these boats are passed down generation to generation. And, the kids start really young. I mean, my kids all, rain boots, extra tough rain boots, as their first pair of shoes. Most of them, their first trip to Alaska, they were 6 months old or something like that. I've had my kids work on the boat with me, and it's something I can pass on, and it's not only does it give them an opportunity to make, very good money, but to me, it teaches them the morals and values of hard work and dedication and perseverance and enjoying what you see, actually slowing down to look around and see this beautiful world that God created, which is truly amazing. I mean, Alaska, if nobody's ever been here, I mean, the one thing I'd tell anybody is come to Alaska at least one time in your life. I mean, it is truly just a magical place, and to be able to have my family here, to be able to work in this place with this industry with amazing people is really a godsend. It's a blessing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really in-depth answer. When you said, oh, that's kind of a tough thing to answer, you actually thoroughly answered that better than I've thought that you probably I mean, I'm just saying that was a really thorough answer. So here's the thing, though. What was the most terrifying moment you faced during filming?
Give me a sec, bud.
What was the most terrifying moment you faced during filming on Deadliest Catch, Dungeon Cove, and how did you overcome it?
So actually, we actually had a boat that went down the Eagle 3, and we were not too far. The weather was really bad that night, and we were running our gear. We were in kind of one of the bigger boats, and we heard the Mayday go out, and we immediately started running the direction for him, and even ourselves, we got caught in some pretty big waves, and I was trying to push the boat to get to where those guys were. And luckily the Coast Guard was on scene pretty quickly. And then we started a grid pattern, searching for the survivors, which unfortunately we didn't find. It's tough, it's tough to lose somebody, because all these little, especially like on the coast, a lot of those are more family based. When you come up here to Alaska, a lot of people come from all over the world to come fish in Alaska, and then they come up, they do their job, and then they go home to their families. Like in Oregon, Washington, and some certain places in Alaska, those they're really part of the community. Those fishermen, it's a community of fishermen. So, everybody knows everybody. And you see them day to day. Your kids go to school. You go to church together. Maybe your wife, is cousins of somebody else or whatever. Everybody's, there's a ton of community ties. And so to lose somebody in that community is really hard because, when somebody passes up here in Alaska or a boat goes down, it's felt very, very deeply here in the fleet and in these towns, but we don't see how it affects the community where they're from, so to speak, because we're just not there. Where when a boat goes down there, you see that basically the whole community just takes this huge hit. And it's instantly mourning. And so for me to be there and witness that, it was really tough, and I mean, I met one of the kids' moms, like really the next day. And, I met, I saw the captain, that survived. And, I met like all these people. I mean, it was like, we came into town. It was just, we were hit with everybody, and the fact that they knew that we were filming the show, people were kind of coming to us, and it was really hard, and it made me realize that, being up here in Alaska where, a lot of guys think of themselves, oh, we're professional fishermen up here. It's kind of nice because we have that disconnect from the communities that we leave, and, we were able to come up here. We're down there. It's like, man, you're in it for, a week or two, or 3 or a month while the whole community mourns. And, for me to get over that, was faith, my faith in God and my Lord to see me through and protect my crew and watch over me. I mean, that's what gets me through everything up here is my faith.
So you brought up faith several times. May I ask, what denomination of Christianity do you belong to?
Yeah. So denomination wise, I was actually kind of raised Protestant and Catholic. And,
okay.
I actually have some Orthodox in my family too. So I'm leaning more towards Orthodox now, which is kind of funny.
Nice.
I'm kind of leaving the Protestant side of things and going Orthodox.
Fucking based.
And that's just kind of the way it is.
Okay. Since you and I have met, Go ahead.
I lost you guys there. All right. So yeah, my headphones died finally.
Oh, you're fine.
So yeah.
You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going, is just the, the Orthodox side of things.
Gotcha. So ever since, I think that we met before over at Campfire, we talked a lot of shit. And then not only this, but we talked about values, intrinsic traditions, culture. I think we went over everything, but I've been baptized since last we met. So I'm an official Orthodox.
Congratulations. Good for you.
So, and we met around a bunch of Orthodox men. I happen to meet a lot of celebrities during my pro career, but when I met you, it was like I started meeting a lot of other people around campfires during that time period. It's really weird, but it's just a really weird happenstance. But here's the thing that I have to ask. How has the show changed your perspective on the fishing industry, especially regarding safety and the realities of Dungeon Cove in Newport, Oregon?
It's the show definitely highlights. I mean, obviously it's a show, it's a reality TV, so they have to highlight drama and the dangers and everything else. So it brings a lot of focus on that. So, being a captain and being part of the community, speaking at different things, different events from, United Fishermen's Association to numerous other things, it's really made me focus more on passing on that knowledge and safety, passing on, kind of the good ways of being a captain, what to watch out for, and basically trying to teach the younger guys and the youth, better means and better ways to not only save themselves if needed, but preserve their boat. Also, I've worked with a lot of industry leaders, from electrical companies to numerous other things, to help develop better safety measures and better safety equipment, for the industry. Because, this industry was pretty much functioning in the 1950s and 60s for a long time. And it's a really hard, kind of like the fire service, it's really hard to bring technology into this industry, just because you've had a bunch of old timers that are like, if it works, don't break it. So trying to get like GPS locators on every crew member, trying to get, just different things to increase our, our survivability. So, and I saw that with the military. The military has been doing that year after year after year. So it was like, let's bring some of this back to this industry that's so dangerous, and make it a little bit more survivable for individuals.
So that brings me to my next question, and Vic, you could even parlay on this. I kind of like bounce off of this question as well too, and offer some input. Yeah. Do you think that feminism will ever infiltrate the high seas when it comes to low tech and manual labor at any point, Mark?
No,
I don't know. I don't think so, but
I will be honest with you, and I'll give some women some credit.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very I'm just going to be blunt and honest. There's some women out there that do this job. And if you look at who their families were, they were raised by a captain, they were raised in this industry, and they can hold their own to a level, but there's just physical limitations. I mean, it's just a bottom line. I mean, you're not going to see, there's a lot of guys out there that can go pick 100 or 1,000 pound pot up and push it down the deck and flip it over and everything else. And you're just not going to see the women do it. Now, does that mean that they can't do the job? No. Can they do it to the level of a man? No, it's physically impossible for them. And it's not saying that they don't have the drive or the motivation. It's just their bodies aren't built for it. And that's just it. And it's the same thing with firefighting. I mean, we saw it numerous times in firefighting where women, not saying that there's not exceptions to it, where you have a woman who, literally trains night and day to, become bigger, better, stronger. Maybe her genes are a little different or whatever. And, but I mean, as a whole, no. Not saying that there aren't exceptions, because there are, and those women are truly amazing women. But you're just not going to see it. This is definitely an industry that's always been championed by men. It's always been led by men. It's not saying that women don't play a part. They don't, it's not saying they can't contribute or they can't be part of it, because they sure as heck can. And can they bring benefit to it? Yes, they can. But it's just the physical stamina, all of it. It's just they just can't keep up. So, coming from a business side or something like that, where, like a rate of return, being a boat owner and a captain, I'm going to look at the man and say, okay, I'd rather have you on board. And, but that's the honest truth. I mean, that's,
you would never,
it makes sense.
You would never have a woman on your ship be like, I don't want you to lead the ship like that. You would never have that. Like, you're my captain, but don't be my captain like that. Change your behavior. You'd never have any of this behavior on your ship, would you?
No. She would.
Okay, so let alone
let me put it this way: she would have a very, very quick ticket and find a size 11 boot up her ass as if she was going over the rail onto the dock. So
okay, so no feminism. No. Feminism is the whole parcel of your ship.
Yeah, there is a chain of command here, regardless if you like it or not, and that's just it. There is no favoritism. There is nothing. We don't have time for it. We can't play the I'm a gentle, or this, or I'm a female, or I deserve that. No, there is none of that out here. We don't tolerate that shit, and it's basically you prove yourself by what you do. You earn your respect. You don't just get respect out here. So we don't give anybody respect, and it's relative in the pay. It's relative in everything. You don't get to just come on board and bark orders. I mean, you come on board and you are literally no better than the bubble gum on the bottom of my boot until you prove to me that you're worth something. And if you don't prove that very, very quickly, then you're off my boat very, very quickly. So,
okay. So women could probably provide a support role, really valuable support.
That's great from home.
Right? Okay, good. Okay. That leads me to my next question. And then Vic, you can ask a question after this. What advice would you give to aspiring captains based on the challenges that you've encountered on the show, like equipment failures and crew dynamics?
So the funny thing is in this changing environment that we have, I was blessed to kind of catch the last, with my age, kind of catch the last of the manly men. I mean, if you look at guys, I mean, I was born in 79, but, you look at even the early 80s and here's these guys with, Tom Selleck mustaches, hair coming out, gold chains and, manly men, everybody's ripped. Everybody's like, doing manly stuff. And then you look at like our superheroes of today and you're like, who's that guy? You're like, wow, how did we go from men to like whatever they are, and then those are like what we're supposed to look up to. And it's like, so that unfortunately is spread over to the younger generation. And, like I literally went through 34 people in 1 year just because they didn't know how to work. They couldn't handle direction. They couldn't handle criticism. The job was too tough, it was too physically demanding, too mentally demanding. I mean, I literally had people like walk out and not even collect their paycheck because they were just like, I'm so done. So when it comes to the new guys that are getting into it, you kind of have to be not only a mentor, but you have to be a psychiatrist. You have to be, a captain. You have to be an instructor. You have to be all these things, to keep your world happy. And so, I try to tell the young guys coming into it, I'm like, hey, you gotta set that standard really high for these guys. And you got to push them and motivate them to obtain that, as fast as, as you can, and not be so, willing to be, give in to people. You have to be able to motivate people the right way and push them without obviously breaking them, hopefully. But, that's the big thing. Now, when it comes to safety, training and a lot of classroom, talking to the old timers, getting the experience that you can, reading a lot, I mean, I read all the time, there's a lot of different things that you can do, teach yourself everything from weather to whatever. I mean, this is an industry where you kind of have to be a jack of all trades because there's nobody here to help you, and so you have to be able to learn it all from electrical to hydraulics to mechanics to you name it. So knowledge is key,
So, okay. So you had, I know, Vic, I'm kind of butting in right now. I know you're probably
fine.
So I have a question. So you've seen masculinity kind of take a dip or kind of like a dive since your generation or our generation growing up with the new employment that's been offered to you. Have you seen a decrease in masculinity, or have you seen probably where do you see it going from now? Do you think it's going to continue to decrease with societal norms going this way, or do you think there's hope for the future?
Honestly, I think it's going to decrease. You know, we used to have a lot of guys that would come out and want to get a job on here, you know, to seek adventure and kind of push themselves and test their limits. Not just to be on TV or anything like that, but just to honestly like come out and have an adventure like people used to seek, especially in Alaska, which is kind of the last frontier. And we don't see that as much anymore, you know. We're not seeing the younger generation, you know, especially from like the lower 48. I mean, the kids of Alaska are stepping up because they've grown up here, you know, and they've been in these industries for generations. But we're not seeing the people from like the lower 48. What we actually are seeing is a lot of Eastern Europeans, you know, stepping in and trying to fill that role, that are still these kind of like, you know, come from Russia and all these kind of more manly countries, so to speak, anymore. You know, those people are like trying to step in and take the jobs. But we're not really seeing it from the lower 48 anymore. We're not seeing the young guys that want to push themselves and test who they are. You know, they'd rather sit at home in their 9 to 5 and drive their Prius and sip their Starbucks and, you know, I don't know, whatever they do.
Yeah, if you're driving a Prius, your estrogen's going through the roof at some point.
I know, right? Yeah.
Hey, Vic, I'm gonna leave. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. I'll let you guys two chat for a second. I'll be right back. Give me a second.
Yeah, no worries, Martae. Yeah. Yeah, I had a question. So, like, when Discovery started filming, you know, for the show and everything, how did like their film crew adjust to it? Was it difficult for them because of you know, the weather conditions and maybe some of the hard things you see at sea? Like, how was it for them?
So needless to say, so how the boats work is you actually have kind of a line producer that's on the boat. He's always up in the wheelhouse. And then you have a deck shooter, and obviously they have stationary cameras all over the boats. The deck shooter, though, he's out there with us. I mean, he's out there and, you know, taking waves, getting blindsided, you know, and a lot of them get seasick. So it literally in between shots, they're puking over the side or on themselves or, you know, slipping and falling. And, you know, we're always screaming and yelling at them to get out of the way or be safe or whatever else. So I take my hat off to the deck shooters because those guys are like literally in the trenches with us day, night, you know, all the time. You know, and the line producer's up in the wheelhouse not doing anything, you know, the deck shooter's down there, you know, following you into the bilge or into the forepeak or, you know, he's down in the grime with you, you know, where the line producer's kind of living the high life up in it's always sunny and 70 in the wheelhouse. So he's up there doing his thing. And yeah, so that's it. And it takes a lot too. Cause I mean, now you have this tight knit crew on a boat and then you interject these two people that they're kind of outside the bubble. And so they got to try to fit in and become part of the crew. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And, you know, and so there's a lot of butting of heads but I will say one thing, you know, a lot of the guys that I've had the opportunity to work with are amazing. I'm still friends with quite a few of the guys, you know, coming back up here to Alaska, we see them all the time and it's like, hey, you know, so, I mean, there's some really great people out there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. So how do you think the portrayal of commercial fishing on Deadliest Catch affects public perception? And is there anything that the show got wrong about the daily grind?
So, yeah, well, since my contract's up, I can speak freely.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, there's a lot. It was, I'll be honest, the first, I would say maybe 10 years of the show, maybe 15, something like that. We're really good. You know, things kind of took a turn, you know, with the show when Phil passed away, you know, and same thing with like Dungeon Cove. You know, I mean, I think they needed to focus more on like the actual job itself and not the drama around it. The job itself is dangerous enough. You know, you don't need all the drama to fill in and all that. You know, and there's a lot of things where, you know, it's TV, you know, so it's like, maybe something real happens, but there's not always a camera there. So sometimes you have to recreate it, you know, and you know, not saying it didn't happen, but you just got to make it, you know, and it doesn't add everything there, you know. I mean, you're literally trying to recreate those emotions sometimes. And that's what makes it tough. Luckily they do have cameras in a lot of places. They do catch a lot of things, but maybe not the human interaction. So that's what makes it tough. I kind of wish, I wish they would have, going back, I wish they'd kind of take it back to the beginning, to where it focused more on like, not so much the personal lives of the captains or whatever, but they never really talked about the crew too. Cause it's like what people need to realize is it's not the captain that does everything. The captain, yes, he is the master and the commander and he oversees everything, but you have these crew members that are literally out there, taking it all, and doing everything. And luckily for me, I was, able to work up from, greenhorn all the way up, so I know what every job entails, where other captains haven't been that way, but I wish they would focus a little bit more on the dynamics of the crew and, and the fishery itself, the technical aspects of it and what gets us, doing what we do, why we put our gear in certain places, why we're moving it, I think, trying to teach people a little bit more, not just entertain.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. We briefly talked before the show backstage, before we brought you up, and you had mentioned that you, in our conversation yesterday prior to this, you had served in the Army, especially with your service with the military. How did that experience prepare you for discipline and leadership required in crab fishing?
It taught me, interpersonal skills. It taught me how to, establish command structure, taught me, how to hold myself and others accountable, disciplinary measures, basically just structure, life structure, especially in a job that requires, total commitment and focus, especially when you're tired, your body's degraded and everything else, how to give you that internal, or intestinal fortitude to see through, and to motivate your people correctly. There's a lot of times, and especially in this job where, guys don't want to get out there. They've been up for 26, 30, 40 hours. And it's like, how do you motivate your individuals to go out and accomplish the mission? And, but yet not just accomplish it, but actually, survive it and, blow it out of the water, push beyond those objectives and, and really come out on top. And I think that's what I learned the most.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot. So I'm going to go off of the questions real quick. So I have my own questions because I'm kind of curious. We had conversations prior to this, and that's what I want to touch on. So with your military service and then you still working with nomenclature still, you know what I'm talking about, like firearms and even, I would say like special units maybe, or even contracts, right? Pertaining to all this. We had a conversation before this, and you said that if we had a drill and you tested the nation's infrastructure or to see what our capacity for being, I would say, penetrated by, I would say, enemy forces or something like that, that through this diagram that you kind of, I want to kind of frame this in the right way through this demonstration that you had kind of hinted to, that the nation would fall in like 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, so I can't really go into depth about it.
You don't have to go into detail, but kind of like very surface level stuff.
Okay, so I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Things were done in the past where basically Department of Defense wanted to know how vulnerable the United States was. And so they ascertained individuals and units to basically develop plans and counter plans and then test those theories. And through that, it was discovered that basically as little as 7 individuals could basically take down the infrastructure of the United States within minutes. And I know that there's been some changes and obviously protections put into place with that, but there's still a lot of other infrastructures in the United States that are highly vulnerable and aren't discussed on any level just because of their vulnerability.
I'm pretty sure because of the sensitive nature of what we're kind of glossing over. Vic, you probably understand what we're talking about without us having to talk about this. This is very pertinent to our nation's safety. One thing that comes to mind is like an EMP hit, things like this. And I think you had said not even that. We don't even need that. But that's very scary. for our nation's future, especially because military enlistment has decreased with the onset of physical standards plummeting to shit, and then not to mention this, but masculinity taking a plummet through the basement as we speak, and this whole equality happening right now. People are becoming more soft and sensitive, so that's also hurting our military standards, our recruitment rates, and not to mention this, but I would say our social awareness in society as men is failing. I'm pretty sure you see this in your recruitment rate of people trying to be recruited on your boat, trying to apply, and then walking out without getting the paycheck, like you said. We see this in society. You said that's probably going to plummet in the near future. Do you see yourself as an advocate or trying to help out the men around you in trying to oppose this?
Oh yeah, 100%. I see it not just with this, not within just fishing, but with my other company. I see it hugely. What people don't understand is we've been living, most Americans have been, especially American men, have been living under this rock, and literally we have mainstream media like telling us like all this stuff. If you travel outside, most people don't even travel outside the United States. If you go outside the United States, you'll find out that we're not liked. The majority of people do not like Americans. The majority of nations out there, their youth are training at a very young age on how to be survivalist, and survive a very threatening world that honestly that we live in, that we don't even know about. Most Americans don't even know about, and you see it very quickly when you go overseas. And it's like you can go overseas and most kids know how to use an AK by the age of 8. You look at China and they're training their children at the age of 6, in military preparation and tactics and weaponry and everything else. Meanwhile here, in the United States, you have all these people, trying to bring down the Second Amendment and wokeism and everything else, and, take away masculinity. And, you have women that, it's pushed that women are supposed to get all this treatment and everything else. They can't question anything yet, and you see it like in divorce. You see where like the woman gets everything, the man is still left to pay, but yet doesn't have to, doesn't get the right to see the children and things of that nature. There's so many different angles in the United States where we've been set up to fail, not just in the legal system, but in, like schools and universities. Universities are the worst, if you ask me. But even in jobs, the DEI and everything else. And all these, it started back a long time ago, where it's literally horrible to be a man. You can't be proud to be a man, and you see that even across races. You don't see people, it's like certain races can be proud of who they are, but if another race says they're proud, then that's horrible, that's racism.
Right.
And,
yeah, exactly.
So much of it, and it's all these double standards, and it's the only double standards that they accept, the media accepts, or whoever they are, that they promote, and it's like I like to go against that. It's like, hey, I'm German, and the funny thing is guess what, some of the people in my family were like literally SS German officers, but then the other half of my family fought for America, and I'm like, so what, and like talking to my relatives, that survived World War II in Germany, like listening to their stories, I'm like, well, that doesn't even match, and they have like proof, that doesn't even match like the narrative I learned in school.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, then so I started like actually doing research on my own and looking at different things. And I'm like, wow, everything I was being taught in school about World War II and how that was, there was so much false narrative in there. Not saying some of it wasn't true, but there was so much that was like, we were being programmed.
Yeah.
And, and I've seen that so much in my life, where basically you have, this woke thing is just beating men down to be nothing, and not rewarding them to be a good father, not rewarding them to be a hard worker, not rewarding them to be a brave individual. We don't cherish the things that we used to. And it's like, you look at how, it's like, I see these like, oh, well, women, can have kids, women can do this. Like, what do men do? Well, I don't know. Men, built the entire world, we've done everything. We've engineered, it's like, that's what we've done.
Yeah.
It's like, but yet we can't take credit for it. And, it's like, that's where, being out here on a boat, it's like, I can go to my crew and say, hey guys, you did a great job today. I'm proud of you, and to see them light up knowing me and that I don't give that freely and that they have to earn that. When I do give that, they're like, wow, that's awesome. So, and it's the same sort of thing you see in the military, but that's why recruitment's fell down, because we have this pacifist world that's being pressed on, and it's all BS. I mean, you look at all these people that are pro-Palestine, and it's like, I was laughing when I saw LGBTQ that was all pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you guys went over there, do you know what would happen to you? Or,
exactly.
I mean, I could go on for hours and days about all these different things that I see just in my world, where I'm like, I've seen that in real life, and it doesn't match up with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I have debates on this all the time about how, and Vic, you've seen these debates, and people will say, well, people will say you're anti-black, Martae. Well, you're black. How can you be so anti-black? It's not anti-black. I'm just anti-degenerate culture. The black community, I would say, in my opinion, I don't know what both of your opinions are. I think they're the most racist, outwardly racist in America right now. And they're blunt with saying this. They can call somebody cracker, but if the inverse happened, it'd be bad. If we had the national advancement of white people, that'd be bad, but somehow we have the national advancement of colored people, and then there's the BLM scholarship that they offer, but there's nothing for white people. I've literally had debates on this where it's like, now it's like I'm looked at as the crazy person, or I get called a coon or a race traitor all the time for just saying this, when really it's just common sense. I'm just spouting common sense. But I think true equality is where things are fair, firm, and consistent across the board. But we can't have that, because now all of a sudden this is like an ideological war that we're in. And Mark, you're talking about this ideological war. You've traveled the world. I've heard stories from you talking about traveling the world. And then not to mention this, but I think on social media, you've seen me go to war against me saying that people who are bringing a contrary culture to the U.S., like Islam or something else that won't adapt or acclimate to U.S. culture. Meanwhile, you've just said that other countries are preparing their children to be survivalists, where we're not doing that, kind of like softening the nature of man. And right now, you see me literally debating these people with this ideology all the time. And I'm like kind of the person who's looking for conflict, but trying to find the most competent way to do this. And I think that men like you embolden our youth to be better. I think they embolden our youth to be stronger and more disciplined. I think you offer an impactful existence on the planet right now.
Well, I think, it's basically asymmetrical warfare. If you look at it, I mean, it's what they've been doing. I mean, this isn't something new. I mean, this has been set up for a long time, and the funny thing is, it's in warfare, if you chip away at something, your enemy doesn't even notice you're there, and if you chip away at it long enough, say a foundation of something, that foundation will crumble on its own. And they've been basically doing that. I mean, you look at how strong the U.S. was in the 40s and the 50s when you had the nuclear family, and it was easier, I mean, it was the way of life was easier, I mean, homes were cheaper, cars were cheaper, the mom could stay at home, raise the children. Everybody was, religious to some extent, be it whatever it was. And, now you've had that attack against that for decades, I mean, now you got all these things where, I mean, we don't even know if we're man or woman. It's like, well, no, yes, we do. It's pretty simple. You look down between your legs and that's what it is. Okay? I don't care if you put enough makeup and a dress or whatever, you're still a man. It's like, so all of that is just nonsense to me. And I'm like, well, how did we even get to this insanity? And I agree with you. It's like I went to school in Tacoma, Washington for a long time, and it was like I was literally the white guy, in the school of blacks. And man, I mean, talk about racism. I was like, wow, you guys are. I was just like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, sure, cracker, whatever. And I'm just like, all right, wow, and so I always laugh when I hear black people talk about, oh, white people are racist. I'm like, well, I was just a little white dude. I didn't know anything. And man, like all these black people were more racist against me than anything, And so, and I've seen that so much in my life, not just with blacks, but Hispanics, Colombians, you name it, across the board. And it's funny because like you look up at it and like the white race is pretty much like the minority of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They get blamed for everything, which, it's like, you want to talk about the history of slavery. It's like, well, it's like they're, white, you need to, pay reparations and everything else. I'm like, well, no, really you need to go back to the African kings that were selling their own people to the Dutch and the English, maybe that's where reparations should come from, so it's like, and that's the thing is people are so caught up in their social media and trying to appeal to society that they don't enlighten themselves by picking up a book or learning history. They learn, for me, I'd rather learn from the people that were there or from a book that was wrote at the time, versus somebody's opinion right now or whatever. I mean, I'd rather learn from facts or the people that actually witnessed it and, than anything else. Because, I mean, there's so many ways to be misguided or, steered a different direction. And that's honestly what's happening is just our society is becoming dumb and controlled by, cell phone and social media and everything else, and not taking the initiative to go out and teach themselves and learn and enlighten themselves. And unfortunately, that's been one of the biggest tools that they've used to, I hate to say it, pussify men. So,
yeah, it's so ironic because we live at a time where we literally have like all this information just in the palm of our hand on a phone. But yet I also agree. I feel like we are dumber as a society. People don't really know what they're talking about a lot of the time, and they don't bother to do any sort of research on their own. They just believe whatever they're taught in schools, pretty much.
Well, and the problem too with that is you look at like Gronk or, all these AI things. And I mean, it's funny because what most people don't do is they find a search engine and they're like, oh, this is the one I'm going to use. And I tell everybody to go out there. I'm like, pick a question, utilize multiple search engines and see what answer you get. You're going to get multiple different answers for that one question. And it's basically, and you can tell if that platform is trying to steer you either neutrally, liberally, or conservatively, based on those answers. And to me, so many people don't pick up books anymore or don't go out and see things for themselves. So they rely on that, tool in their hand that they carry around, that little mini computer. But what they don't realize is they're basically being groomed and steered a certain way by the creators of those platforms, to think a certain way. And they don't even realize it, and, or social media. It's like, it's funny. I mean, you can take what was attractive for a woman in 1970, 80, and 90 to now, and you're like, wow, that's completely different. You take what a man was attractive, when you had an attractive man in the 70s, 80s to 90s to now, and it's like completely different. And you look at it, it's like you had these very feminine females, you had these very masculine men, and now you're seeing like this melting pot of like, we don't even know if it's a man or a woman anymore. It's like, well, what? And that's basically, they feed it a little bit slower and slower and slower. It's like, I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, I was a young guy and, we'd get Victoria's Secret's catalog and I was like, man, I'd run to the mailbox and get that. And then it's like, now, Victoria's Secret's catalog's been gone. The swimwear or the fashion show was banned because Halsey got a case of the ass for it or whatever. It's like, who cares? Yes, there's beautiful women out there, but it's like, so what? Like, everybody's beautiful in their own way. And it's like, so what if they're skinny? It's like, it's okay for somebody to be skinny. And it's like, it's like, we did this complete opposite. We're like, okay, it's okay to be fat. First you wanted to be skinny. Now, no, you want to be fat. It's like, well, make up your mind. And it's like, why don't you just be healthy? Let's just be healthy. So it's, and to me, I look at it as, it's just a way of making our nation a lot weaker. I think of defense of our nation and how we could defend ourselves, and everything else. And it's like, most of the people out there couldn't, they're pacifists. They don't have it in them anymore. They don't have the masculinity or either the feminine drive or the mom, what I call the mom gene, where like a mom is like a bear and will do anything to protect her kids. Even females don't even have that anymore because the lines between male and female are so blurred that you don't even see a lot of females having that anymore. They don't have that nurturing, like, I will give my life for my children. It's just very, very odd. It's to see how we were so set, in the 70s and 80s and even like a little bit in the early 90s to now. I'm like, wow, man, it's just a drastic change.
Yeah, so I have a question real quick. So one of the questions I have is, I know that the men that will be underneath your, I wouldn't say tutelage, but your direction for a spell, probably like, let's say, well, first of all, I just want to ask a question to get to the next question. How long do people on average stay underneath your command?
The longest guy that I actually had with me was about 9 years, and then I inspired him. Actually, I had to fire him. He wanted to stay, but I fired him and made him go out and finish his college degree. And now he's
Nice.
doing great, making six figures and everything else. Our mutual friend has been with me for, I think this is year 4 now. Usually when I get somebody, they
Nice.
stick around for a while.
Okay.
They don't move on.
So this is my question. Now that I have like a figure of how long people may stay with you, let's say 4 years, right? If you could map on your discipline and then map on everything else, just keep that in mind. We're going to move to another hypothetical. Let's say that an EMP hit the nation and everything was out. They couldn't use these cell phones in their hand. They didn't have the internet. I know people would be almost probably at death's door within a week. It's crazy. But because of this, if you think that let's just say that we map onto your belief structure, your discipline, everything else, and they have this belief structure, the discipline, the training, not only this, but the traditions and the structure, and you map this onto America, do you think that they would last more than a week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like
obvious answer, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's, up here, I try to, how we have this structured up here, and how I inspire, and I don't even, I try to inspire, but I insist my crew, functions a certain way. We're all cross-trained. Everybody is, survivalist in their own sense. They have the discipline, they have the motivation, they have the faith to back that up. And we have the trust in each other. It's, it's like, there's a famous saying, it's like, you don't die, when you're in the military or you go into battle, you don't die, for the anger in front of you, you die for the love behind you. And, that's kind of the same thing here. We go to sea, and we watch out for each other because these are our brothers out here, and when we do it for our families back home. And even the individuals out there that, want a seafood or want a crab or whatever, it's a large scale thing, but in my, we have a very tight unit, where we all function together very tightly, and there's crew cohesion and everything else. Even though there's a formal structure of command, everybody kind of falls in line into their own place anyways, naturally. And to take that, and I will pit my guys up against any EMP, whatever you have, an invasion force. My unit is going to survive. We're gonna become our own little community. We're gonna make it through. And I think people need to take that sort of mindset and put it in their everyday life. They need to quit taking things for granted. Men need to learn how to change their oil, work on their own engines, not realize that there's not always going to be a mechanic around, that there's not always going to be a plumber. Women need to be able to do their own things, can food, cook, clean, it's like all of that, but they also need to be able to learn maintenance and know how to help their man. It's like, we need to start developing these family units. We need to start with the family unit itself, and establish these teams, so to speak, where that family unit can survive, where the kids are learning, we're teaching our children these knowledge of woodworking, food growth, farming, everything, all of that up from, because that used to be passed for, down to every generation. My dad taught me that stuff, to be like a jack of all trades and a master of few, and that's the stuff that we've lost, and those are the things that make it possible to survive. I just had an instance on my boat last night where literally we had a part for our motor that, the engine was dead. And I literally had to weld this part and build my own lathe and machine it by hand. And it took me 16 hours. And, but I did it, and it was like, people are just, I don't know. The sad thing is I knew a lot of men that were older than me that could have done that, but men that are my age and younger now, I don't know very many. And that's the sad thing, and that's not, because once that knowledge is gone, it's gone. It'll never come back, unless it's learned through really tough, hard times. And that's the thing, men and women are kind of losing they need to start picking that stuff up that their, ancestors, or their elders knew, and their elders probably would love to pass that knowledge on voluntarily, and have that and pass it on to the next generation, because if you don't have it and you have to learn it, you're going to have to learn it at the worst time where your life depends on it, and you're probably not going to survive. And that's just it. Why not learn it?
Too late then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it, and this nation is floundering in that level. Everybody just, yeah, I mean, it's sad. We used to be a very, very strong nation, with very, very strong, determined people, and now we are not.
Yeah,
go ahead. You're going to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to say I agree with him 100%. There's nothing I disagree with at all. I think everything he's saying is correct.
Yeah, I think we're losing a lot of trades when it comes to trades, and we're foregoing trades for a college degree. And I'm not saying like gender studies, but just an expensive piece of paper that's not really going to do you much in regards. I mean, you're probably still going to be a barista with that degree, which is crazy. That happens more often than not now. As far as myself, and I know this show's about Mark here, but I'm just going to imbue a lot of this because it coincides with what you're talking about. When I did work for the government at the time that we met, Mark, because of my outspoken nature and, me being on social media and all that, they don't really take too kind to like me having like an opinion that's in relation to politics and all this other stuff. But ever since then, I now go to school, and I'm in school to be a diesel tech. And this is to work on big engines, big rig engines. This could be like a ship's hull and the engine itself, and welding and doing all this stuff with electronics, electrical work and all this. It's like a jack of all trades industry when it comes to that. I think going through school right now, I see exactly what you're talking about. I see like out of the whole school, there's probably like maybe 2 women out of all these men that are going to this trade. And the trade is desperate for this industry, which is dying in America right now. And not to mention this, but I'm pretty sure you see this at sea. You see the utility of the knowledge of maybe manual labor, working with your hands, becoming a survivalist, and how this kind of sharpens your view on perception, reality of being a man. And not only this, but masculinity as a whole. So this is my next question, Mark. We no longer see movies because you've been on TV a few times and a couple episodes of this, probably way more than that. And we'll go into like your experience with movies and things like that. But I want to ask a question. So the movie Predator, if that came out nowadays, that would probably be like a very toxic masculinity version of like, I think people would probably be opposed to that because there's nothing but men in the movie, and the woman's kind of like almost helpless in the movie. And all these strong, big men are coming to fight some creature that's taking them out one by one. I think that we need to bring this back in Hollywood. Do you see masculinity coming back on a big screen in Hollywood in the foreseeable future like that?
No. Bottom line, no.
Just a no.
Yeah.
No. It's really funny being in that industry for a while, and not just in the silver screen, but the golden screen, and both sides of it, being in the movie side of it, and the reality TV side of it, and then the actual production, regular TV show side of it. No. Masculinity is the biggest threat to them. And whoever that is, I'm not going to pretend like I know who that is. If it's the 1%, or everybody's like, oh, the Illuminati, the 1%. It's like I don't know. I don't care. I just know that they're not my friends and they're my enemy. And I don't care who it is. But I know. They know that social media, they know that movie, that TV is the way to reach individuals anywhere and everywhere. And the last thing they want is individuals that are free thinkers, individuals that appreciate a structured society. They want turmoil. They want they just really want to tear us apart, honestly. If you ask me, they want us to be dependent on whatever they have planned for us. They don't want us to be able to survive on our own. So, I mean, people like me, my industry is a threat. That's why you see a lot of people like survivalists, they're a threat. It's like, that's why you don't see a lot of those survivalist shows anymore where like they would teach you actually how to survive. You just don't see them anymore because they're a threat. And so if you actually go back in just the last 10 years, look at what type of shows used to be out there. Like mechanic shows that would actually teach people, like one of the great shows that Jesse James, knew him when I was in Long Beach, and he would actually teach people how to weld. I mean, he motivated me to weld and build motorcycles. Watching his shows when I was younger, and like you don't see those shows anymore because they don't want to inspire that. They want you to become dependent on your phone, dependent on that, that money, and that you rely on them, that sort of socialist communist thing. I mean, that's they want you to be dependent on that. They don't want you to stick up and think for yourself. So will you ever see that manly stuff in big screen? No. I think you're starting to see a change of that with everything that's came out with the Epstein list, and you can go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
But, it's, I mean, there's an awakening going on. I think, the government started, the internet, and then they kind of lost control of it. And I think there's a lot of ways that they wish they could reel it back in, so to speak, so that we didn't have these ability to communicate. I mean, if you think about it, back in even the 80s, like we'd pick up our, phone that had a cord going to the wall, and now we can literally pick up a phone and snap a photo and, FaceTime and do this and everything else. I mean, I'm on the Bering Sea via Starlink, it's like that's unheard of. So the how communication and facts and things are just passed, and we all take advantage of it, and we take it for granted, but we overlook a lot of things. But I think there's the ability, and there's kind of an enlightenment going on where people are starting to wake up and realize, okay, well, wow, we have proof that COVID really wasn't what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we're finding out that all these political people are basically now lying through their teeth and whatever else. And it's, to me, I laugh now where like people are still, when they're still following that narrative, a lot of boomers. And that's just because boomers don't have the ability nor the knowledge to how to pick up and look at Instagram or, all they look at is CNN or Fox, and that's where they get their whole thing from. They're not looking at like, the backside things, the underground stuff, the Reddit forums and posts and things of that nature, the podcasts and stuff like that. So they're just thinking along those lines that, Russia bad, communism bad, and that's it. And, that's the way it's always been. And we have the ability, it's kind of almost like a second renaissance in a way where we have the ability to enlighten ourselves through mass communication all over the world. I mean, we can literally dial up a guy in Uganda and be like, hey, what's going on outside your door right now? It's FaceTime. Hey, what's happening in Kiev, Ukraine right now? What's happening in Moscow, Russia? We have the ability to network, and so many of us choose not to do that. And we literally can tell each other what's happening. I mean, it's like you saw what happened with January 6th, and people were live posting that and everything else. And, they were trying to paint a different narrative. Yeah. Mainstream media was, and yet people are like live posting stuff. And then, you were seeing various platforms take that stuff down for censorship because it didn't fit the mainstream media. Same thing with BLM, same thing, all of it, and you can, if you look at all of that, you can see how it's being steered. And it's not being steered in a great way, and honestly, it's not saying I don't love my nation or love my government or whatever else. I'm a proud American. I mean, I live and die for this country, more than any time. I love the people in it, and, but that, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways we're being misdirected. And I don't think necessarily it's people just in America. Obviously, it's not. Look at the Epstein thing. It's worldwide. So.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned how they like lost control of the internet. They did try to control the internet, they did try with social media. They censored people that said the wrong things, and they classified it as hate speech, and they tried to control speech through that way and the information through that way. But then when Elon Musk went and bought X, it kind of ruined everything because he allowed freedom back on the platform. And it kind of destroyed a lot of narratives. He released those files showing that they did try to force the social media companies to not let people post freely. So they did try to control the internet, but now they've kind of lost control of it again, I think.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you look at what's happening in Western Europe right now, where people are being persecuted and arrested for basically airing their First Amendment rights, and
that's crazy. Yeah, it's true.
And I have relatives in England and Germany, and it's just the funny thing is it's these very, very far left-wing governments that are doing this, that are literally censoring people and persecuting people for freedom of speech and everything else. But yet, here in America, we have the leftists saying, well, the right-wing people are that way. And I'm like, well, no, it's not, that's not reality,
Exactly.
And, it's like, I crack up because when everybody comes down to like, oh, Democrats are this, Republicans are that. I'm like, well, really, if you go back to like the 1800s, like the Democrats were the ones for slavery. The Democrats were that. I'm like, it's kind of a flip flop, Democrats were pro KKK, and no, they weren't. No, I'm like, okay, well, let me show you some proof, and they're like, minds are blown. And I'm like, yeah, you may want to rethink, and I mean, like even, we can talk about Kennedy and all that stuff that's coming out with the Epstein things and everything else. And I'm like, Israel and how much control and fingers they have in our own government here and why we're so there and everything, I mean, I will say one thing, that there's a lot more in the Epstein files that, thankfully we have hackers out there that work in the dark web. And that are smart enough to, obtain things and then put it publicly. But then the sad thing is there's even proof of it, where Epstein was paying a guy, a group of hackers to basically redirect search engines if it had anything with child molestation or trafficking, and there's emails, talking about that, where he's working with this group to basically misdirect searches on that. And so if people believe that, that's not happening still when it comes to various things, then they're idiots, and, I mean, you have like Anonymous and all these other groups that are trying to put the truth out there. I mean, literally the black and white copy and paste from Epstein's actual email address and put it out there. And it's being, mislabeled, misinformed, or, fabricated or whatever else, or AI, where literally now, I mean, we know Epstein's still alive and he's in Israel. I mean, it's been proven on multiple things. And the funny thing is, if you don't have to look at the U.S. anymore, because the U.S. is trying to literally put a lid on this stuff. Meanwhile, you're seeing in Denmark, France, and various, Central European nations, they're actually persecuting these people now and going after them, maybe not for child trafficking, but for fraud and various other things. And if you look at their websites, you're seeing a lot of stuff that's reality of those websites and those other nations, but that are being buried and hidden here in the United States.
Wow, you said a lot. That's so much. I don't like. There's like 10 things that I would like to address, but the whole Epstein still alive thing, that's a massive bombshell claim that you just made. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that it's plausible. I certainly know that it's plausible if they're going to cover things up and hide them. Meanwhile, like there's a video and there's like segments of footage missing from the video of like supposedly where he hung himself and all this. Yeah. So I would say it's definitely plausible. So I agree with you on that.
Here's the thing is, so they had, you had some people that hacked into the CCTV footage there, because literally the CCTV footage there was kept on for 90 days, I guess, before it cleared, which is pretty standard. And somebody hacked into that, and they actually have an individual like running up the stairs. And then at the same time, I mean, here's what's amazing to me is Americans are highly capable individuals, and a lot of time our government underestimates them. And so, there's been a lot of, the FBI turns to people a lot of times. CIA does too. The CIA looks at different things, because there's a lot of people out there that are very, very smart, that are in their, living rooms and or find a passion for something and solve murders or find lost children and individuals just by working on their laptop at their dinner table. And, there's a lot of people out there that, they got footage. How they got it, but they got, footage of somebody in orange jumpsuit literally going up the stairs, in between bed checks, the night Epstein supposedly killed himself, and then somebody else, put on flight radar a helicopter landing, at that building, that had no recognized N number on it, and they posted that. They actually recorded it and screen recorded it,
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like you have all these super sleuths out there that are just regular Americans, who are doing their due diligence, thinking for themselves, and they're all coming together on these various platforms, putting up the evidence that they have. And then honestly, you have people that aren't Americans that don't trust the regime and everything else that are, I mean, they've pretty much validated. They knew that the one video that they put out of Epstein supposedly was AI generated, but then somebody literally just pulled out their cell phone and snapped a freaking video of who they thought was Epstein. And then somebody ran a facial scan on it, which they're accessible to anybody. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty, like, I think the match was like 96 or 7%. I'm like, that's actionable intelligence, coming from the military side. If your intelligence is 96, 97%, that's actionable intelligence. So
that's crazy. From this conversation alone, I will say that my testosterone bumped up an extra 10%. I'm just gonna let you know right now.
Yeah, same.
I'll be back for just a minute, real quick. I gotta take a piss real quick. Vic, I'll let you guys talk real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Going back, what you said earlier. You said something about how like people over the world, they don't really like look at Americans too fondly. Is it like, what do you mean? Like, is it like us as people? Is it our government? Like, what is it exactly?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. A lot of governments, look at the United States as kind of as one that oversteps its boundaries and sets the presidents down. With the excuse of bringing democracy to a world and creating a stable world, which in a lot of ways we do. I think some of that probably gets tainted a little bit due to capitalism and industrialism. And the problem is a lot of people that, especially with outsourcing that happened, during the Obama administration, a lot of our defense comes from foreign, I won't say, complete, but, a lot of parts that go into our defense sector come from foreign entities. So, other countries obviously gain immensely, especially their private sectors, with the U.S. going to war. And not saying our people don't here in the U.S. also. So a lot of people don't really like the U.S. for that. And then, you talk to a lot of other, as an individual, they think we're dumb. Honestly, they think we're, the stereotypical California, Barbie Ken sort of thing, just, very self-centered, very, just American. It's funny. They're like, wow, you guys are just self-centered and rude and whatever, or you're just, then you go to other places and you're like, Americans aren't serious. They're always just laughing and everything's a joke and, they're too carefree. And, so you get kind of both sides of it. And it just depends on where you're at in the world. But yeah, it's, we're not really looked upon as like this great, nation, by a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's true. That's true. I think that we're not looked at as the shining house on the hill anymore. I think we're looked at as either like Big Brother by our own nation, or looked at as people who are just, frankly, by conservatives supporting communism. Basically, that's what it's leading to right now by a lot of people. And we're inviting a lot of socialist standards in society as well, too. And I think that's fraught with a lot of abuse that's happening right now. So, here's the thing, though, globally and even nationally, I agree with you that our view isn't the best, especially by other nations. I went to the UK during a period of time when Trump's first presidency was happening and I was competing. And I think that when I heard this in a bar, they were talking about Trump as like, he was like the laughing stock when he first was president by other countries. And I'm like, this is by the UK in London when I went there. And then not to mention that, but I don't think it's changed that much. One thing I'll say though, is that our standards are changing greatly. And I think that we could see this self-evident by the UK standards of their free speech laws being under attack. So if you mention something like, Allah eats bacon or something like that, you could be arrested for this. So when people make remarks,
it's rubbing on your bacon.
Yeah, it's going to happen. But when we talk about other countries coming into our other people coming into our country and refusing to acclimate, but telling us to change to their culture, we see remnants of this happening in UK right now. And when I bring this up, people don't understand. They don't think that this could ever happen to the United States. Where do you see this happening if we continue to allow illegal immigrants coming in, changing our culture and our traditions?
So, I actually had a discussion with our friend about this the other day, and this is what made, everybody's like, oh, well, nobody's welcome on stolen lands. Well, every land is stolen. Okay, every land's been conquered. So that bullshit does not stand with me. Yeah. I'm sorry, and in my, I actually have a very small amount of Native American in me, but it just doesn't stand with me. You got conquered, face it. Okay, that's what happens, and it happens. It's happened for generations and thousands of years. But what made America great is you had these people that were fleeing, basically persecution, and then this, hierarchy of England, and they wanted to get away from it. They wanted to be their own people. They wanted to govern themselves. And so they came here, and that there's the colonies, and then other people came. I mean, you had, not only did you have English, but you had, Irish, you had, Germanics, Hessians that were left over from the fur wars, that were basically Austrian Germans, I mean, all these people came together, you had, even at the time, Africans, all these people, they came together and basically developed a nation out of nothing, working together, trusting in each other, not looking as one is better than the other. And, that they developed what America was. And, and we saw that in the, 1800s, people coming from Europe, wanting a better life, and move west, and the gold rush and all these different things, oil booms. But when they came here, they brought their history with them. I mean, they brought that history. They brought those technical skills, the craftsmanship, or the woodworking or whatever. But they knew that they were coming to America to become Americans. They were proud to become an American. They learned the national anthem. They learned the history. They were like, I am a German American. I'm not German. I'm a German American. And that made them feel better about being, who they were. They were a Polish American. They were Italian American. They were Irish American. There was always American, and they assimilated and took pride in being an American. And we don't see that anymore. I live in Arizona, and I see it's like, oh, well, I'm Mexican. Well, it's like, no, you're Mexican American. No, I'm Mexican. Okay, well, then you're not a citizen, right? You're illegal. Sums it up, and it's like, you see that, and it's like, that's our problem, is we don't teach, we don't stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. We're not proud to fly our flags. We try to replace our flags with LGBTQ and this and that. It's like, no, like the only flags that should fly at a state or federal building should be the MIA, POW, state flag, United Armed Forces flag, or the American flag. And the American flag should always be above everything, Exactly. And I mean, that's just it. That's who we are. Great. You want to have your whatever flag? I don't care. Fly it outside your house. Be proud of it, but just, we should not identify and fall under that. We need to fall under one banner, and I mean, if you think about knightly times or any things like that, Napoleonic Wars and stuff of that nature, it's like the banner, even the Civil War, it's like we all rallied underneath one banner. If the flag fell, we fell. And that's another way they've been trying to attack us, is to tear that down. What makes America America? And if we keep allowing that with all these people coming in, it's like, hey, we are a country built by immigrants, from immigrants. But at the same time, we need to make sure those immigrants, don't force, they can assimilate. They're proud to be Americans. They know the history, they learn the history, and they're proud to bring something to the table. Like I think Arnold Schwarzenegger said something like where, he was so proud to be an American, like give back because it gave so much to him. And that's the type of immigrants we need, not these people that come here from various, nations that are like, no, we're going to build our own little micro nation from where we came from inside the United States. We're going to take over the local governments. We're going to rob the people blind. We're going to take from the taxes, Somalia, and, all that stuff. I'm like, I mean, you go to Michigan now and it's like micro Somalia. And I'm like, how did this happen?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Especially,
yeah,
it's like, I mean, you go to Dearborn, Michigan, and it's like Little Fallujah. And I'm like, how did this happen in such a short time? And it's not because of the people around it not wanting it to happen. It's because of all this woke politics and everybody. We need to accept everybody. No, we don't need to accept everybody. We need to vet people and accept people that want to be here, that will be beneficial to this nation, that won't bring this nation harm and everything else. I mean, you can take it all the way back to, the Chinese spies. I mean, when I told you I worked as a fire truck engineer, when I unveiled my fire truck at FDIC in Indianapolis, I literally had Chinese guys walking around with a quarter and setting it everywhere on my fire truck because it was a known dimension, and they would snap photos, and then they could take that photo with a known dimension of a quarter, go back and reverse engineer the part, and then sell it for cheaper. And you see that happening all the time. Yeah.
Whoa.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
Our capital intellect is completely under attack. You see, like, I don't know if you guys know Travis Haley, but Haley Strategic, a lot of his things have been copied, and they'll literally buy it off of his website, have it shipped to a middle person, say in California, then that person forwards it to China. They reverse scan it, they engineer it, they sell it on, Google or whatever, Amazon or Temu for cheaper on the dollar. And, people buy it because it's cheap, even though the quality and the craftsmanship's horrible, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's robbery. That's literally robbery when we're taking pending information, and it's like it's hard to like legally sue somebody else from another country from taking your patent and then creating their own product sometimes. So I think that's robbery in broad daylight that's happening right now. When you talk about the quarters being put on your engine and them reverse engineering that in their country, it's almost like they have the ingenuity that we don't. I think we're losing that as a country. We're becoming lazy, we're becoming lax, and not to mention this, but I think we have an issue with feminism, feminizing men as a whole by trying to make them equal with women, which will never happen. And this is, I don't even know where to go from there. This is just crazy. And I can see this happening in real time, and you do too. And I'm sure Vic can agree with that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of the feminism stuff, there's with that comes a lot of the tone policing where it's like, well, I don't like the way that you say this, or I don't like the way that you say that. You're too harsh, or you're using such crass language. And it's like, yeah, we kind of need enough with that, because sometimes these things need to be said. But if we're always worried about, oh, well, we got to be careful when we say this, I think it's going to hinder us more than help us personally.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody needs the hard truth, I mean, that's it. It's it, it's like, I'm an average looking guy, below average.
Mm-hmm.
I've been beat up and thrown hard, put away wet, and everything else. There's a whole lot better looking people out there than me, and I can handle that, where it's like, I don't give a shit. You call me fat, ugly, or whatever. I don't care. It's like, I am who I am. Where if you say that to a woman, she's going to rip her head off, and whatever. And that sort of stuff, it just cracks me up. The double standards is just ridiculous, And I mean, if the pussification of men is horrible, and it's like, men should be able to speak their mind, be men,
Mm-hmm.
be who they are, pound on their chest and kick some ass and, take some names and build some stuff, and,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you looked at Henry Ford, who built that. Henry Ford, he was a man. Okay. There you go. And that sort of stuff has been suppressed lately, and it's like, oh, well, we got to think this way. Well, you know what? Men know how to get shit done. We just do. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Let us take the lead. We'll rebuild the nation,
Mm-hmm.
And it's not saying that women can't be there in some shape or form or by our side or whatever else. But like, to basically take your strongest players of the team and put your thumb on them and press them down and hope to God you're going to win, that's not going to happen. And that's why I know they don't want us to win, is because they're setting us up with all this feminism stuff and woke ideology and everything else, where they do not want this nation to succeed. They don't want us to succeed as Americans. They definitely don't want men to succeed. They want us to basically fall. And I think a lot of it, maybe, it has to do with population control. I don't know, it could be with different things, but yeah, I mean, they just don't want it. There's definitely a secret agenda going on, and they've been winning. And that's all I'll say.
Okay, so Mark, we've been at this for probably a little bit over an hour and a half, but I want to kind of almost wrap it up right now. This has been a pretty based conversation.
Yeah,
actually.
super based, I would say. Yeah.
This is super based. So one thing I do want to ask though is one of my some of my final questions I want to ask is for the future of the nation. For your fellow men, your brothers, I would say even men coming up, if they were to take one piece of advice from you as a captain of a ship and somebody who has a no-nonsense, take no bullshit personality, what would you say to the up-and-coming person that wants to get ahead in this world, wants to be a good family man, and wants to produce in this nation and contribute?
Find Christ.
Based.
Yeah. Based. Yeah, I agree with that. Good answer.
Very based, man. Vic, you got anything to say? Any questions or anything?
Let's see. No, I don't have any questions, Mark. I will say though that this was a great conversation. Men like you are definitely a dying breed, and honestly, we need more men like you, pretty much. And I think we have a lot of work to do if we're ever going to get a culture back on track where men like you are more common than rare.
I agree. I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. And I mean, that means a lot to me. I mean, to me, it seems kind of normal, and what we should be, and the standard that everybody should be at. And maybe it's a little bit more normal for me because of the jobs I've been in, but I can definitely see where it's, especially having younger male boys, I can see where it's definitely being attacked and where, men such as myself and you guys need to step up and get the word out. I mean, honestly, it's an informational battle, that we're waging with all these people that have billions of dollars behind them, and influence, A-list celebrities and everything else, and money and billboards and TV shows and all that, and it's the little guys, it's young son heroes like yourselves that are taking them on, and I really appreciate that from both of you. That you guys are going up against the machine, the monster that's been created, and allowed to be let loose for decades, and you guys pretty much put some gigantic targets on your back, for doing it day in and day out, and so for that, thank you.
Yeah, we do this. I try to do this. I probably get death threats, probably like at least 2 a month now. It's minimized now. It used to be worse than that. But even my views, that would be common sense. This would be like men becoming men, and then me having to define what a man is. And then even men's contribution to society and what that looks like, and having discussions with people is rather offensive to the majority, which is weird nowadays. These conversations that I have nowadays that are offensive now would have been normalized like 10 years ago. And we could see the fall in society when it comes to our viewpoint of what masculinity is and femininity. It's been warped so many times that the overlap has blended the two, that almost we're now making men women and women the new man now. And it's bastardized this viewpoint to where it's like now gender, sex, and the same thing, and things have been convoluted to some point. But this is why I get into this, and this is why I do have these interviews. This isn't about politics or just to find out, like, to push an agenda. This is just to see what your worldview is, and to dive deep underneath the captain of the person, underneath the title and all this, to see who you are as a person. And frankly, what I find out is that you're one of the most based fucking individuals I've talked to.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
It's extremely rare. But this is why I do compare you to the comedian from the Watchmen series. And I don't know if you've seen that, but he's somebody that does support American values. He's an overcorrection of this, I would say, but to the point to where he doesn't take any bullshit. And I don't think you do either. I think that if you and I were in the trenches together, I'd fight the same fight that you fight, and Vic would fight the same fight that you're fighting too, frankly. And I'm going to even admit that some of the celebrities that we're going to bring on don't share the same value. So it's going to be a little tough navigating these waters, no pun intended, when it comes to talking to these people, because they might not even share the same views or values or political beliefs. But we'll deal with that when we come to that fork in the road. But you have been a joy to talk to, and not only this, but men like you are rare to find in society nowadays, and it's extremely rare. But I think that if we can map on your belief system onto the young men in America, we would have a more productive society and our infrastructure would be booming. But I agree with you. I think we're failing. And I think in the future of the golden cinema of Hollywood and all this, matter of fact, that goes back to my other question I want to ask. What other movie projects have you been attached to, and what other experiences have you had as far as Hollywood is concerned?
So, yeah. So when I was in Long Beach there for a while, I did some work for the TV show Dexter. So we actually had our boat out doing some stuff when they were doing some basically chopping up bodies and throwing them overboard. That was our boat that they were using. So we did some work on Dexter. We've done some different commercials with beer and you name it, a bunch of different commercials. And then myself, I was actually blessed to be able to work on a movie with my dad called Echo. Very small movie. It got released during COVID, and so it didn't do very well. But it was actually awesome because I get to watch it and watch the movie and see my dad who passed away in 2018 and see our boat and everything else. So, but that definitely opened up the doors to the larger side of Hollywood, going from like a reality TV guy to working on actual big time TV shows, network shows, to doing an actual movie. I gotta go deeper and deeper and deeper into the Hollywood circle and realize how corrupt and evil it was, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem. What you're gonna probably run into. You're gonna have these celebrities on that are obviously way bigger, way more well known than me, and they have managers. I used to have a manager at a talent agent, and everything else that, I had to vet everything. And, it felt so good to get rid of my agent and my manager and everything, because then I could think for myself and everything, speak for myself and not have everything vetted or whatever. And the problem is a lot of people, they don't have anything else. They don't have any other skills or trades or knowledge. So they've been movie stars, or they're so used to the money and everything else. Actually, I have an individual who's a very, very close friend of mine, and he has nothing else, other than TV. And if he loses TV, he loses everything, And so they basically sold their souls to the devil, so to speak, and they're forced to. They'll never be able to share their honest opinion. They'll never be able to be completely honest, because they know if they go against that, they'll never work in the industry ever again. Like for me, I'm kind of blackballed, and I know it because I speak my mind, and
Wow.
I don't stand up and I don't take shit, and I just basically call it for what it is. And so I know I've been blackballed. It was been told to me from a couple people, just because I don't. Yeah, it's fine, because to me I'd rather pick my morals and values over fame and fortune. I chased fame and fortune for a long time, and I came out realizing that, my moral compass was pointing the wrong way, and I needed to put God first, and family and honesty and love and respect and all of that, and be a leader of men and not a follower and chaser of BS. So, it was a real quick switch for me to see, because I saw the evils of it, and I was like, wow, I'm not going down this path. And, luckily I had, Christ kind of leading me before then. And so he was quick to show me, and I was like, okay, I need to change lanes real quick. And ever since I did that and became outspoken and stand up, honestly, you look at Mel Gibson and all those guys who stood up for their religious beliefs, and you see them struggling, now, and they're kind of being vindicated a little bit with this Epstein stuff. But
yeah,
it's funny, even on the TV shows I worked on, it's like, we'd want to say a prayer, we'd want to do this, we'd have icons around, and it's like they would always be taken down, blacked out, and we can't do this, it's like, and they come up with these ridiculous excuses, and I'm like, what about our religious freedoms? We rely on this more so than anybody else. Like, we put our faith in this to keep us alive, and all that stuff was always being attacked, by Hollywood and everything. So I think when you talk to the rest of them, you probably won't get direct answers. They'll definitely pick the gray areas to communicate in.
Yeah, that's what's going to be difficult, bringing on these other celebrities that I know. And these people I know really well. Like, I literally send them texts and get texts back. kind of enigmatic when it comes to getting a straight answer, but I also feel like I guess we're not going to really flesh things out. We're just going to talk about surface level stuff, which is going to be kind of boring to me. But bringing that on, I do want to kind of like because I have some people from the music industry which are adjacent to like Snoop and these other people. That's going to be a little rough when it comes to this, especially when it comes to politics or anything like that. I don't want to have a show that's lacking substance, which this show, mind you, has nothing but testosterone, and it's this pure adrenaline, fuel, survivalist mentality, and what a man should be. To me, I equate this to what would be like the Rogan experience when it came to getting to know somebody, the ins and outs of their industry, their ideological values, not only this, but their culture that they bring on screen, because you are walking culture. When we see this is the culture that you set forth on your ship for other people to follow, which keeps men safe, which keeps them protected, and we can map this onto our nation. And to me, we can replicate this, but I don't think that these values are seen in some of the celebrities that we may have on the show as well too. But you know what? That's not for me to decide. That's for me to vet when the time comes. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And Mark, I know that in this real world, and we're talking about this reality, that if everything happens to go to shit, I know you as a friend and as a brother that with my diesel mechanic degree, I could, or my knowledge of all this, I can just be like, you know what? He doesn't take any bullshit. Neither do I. All I think about is a merit-based protocol, and we could survive together. So I think that if we have more men and brothers in Christ, and we bring all of us together, we can formulate a society that we can map onto our next generations of people to come.
I agree 100%. It's kind of time for a new crusade, so to speak, you know.
Oh, crusade.
Crusades, huh? Yeah, now we're talking.
The Impaler may be making a second coming.
Well, I'll say, my oldest relative that I can trace back is Mark Quad, who actually brought, it was a Teutonic Knight and brought Christianity to Latvia. So I believe it was like in the 1513s or something. That's my oldest.
Oh, wow.
Or 11. I actually have to look at it. It's like 15 something, but yeah, it's my oldest relative that I can trace my family back to. So yeah, we've been fighting for Christianity for a long time. Anyways, but yeah, it's I think I challenge anybody that you have on here, to grow a set of balls and actually speak their mind and go against the system, and not be afraid of being honest, because it's not about just us as individuals. It's about our children. It's about society. It's about our nation and morals and values and survivability as humans as a whole, and if America doesn't get with it here pretty soon, it's going to get really, really ugly, really, really fast. So, I suggest any celebrity that you have on here to actually grow the set and speak the truth and not worry about what their agent or their manager is going to say, and realize that now's the time to actually step up and think for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and really impactful is the discussion moving forward. And I know my co-host Cool Vic certainly approves and enjoys this too. This has been an experience for me. I feel like I got a whole lesson in return. Like you were kind of preaching there for a minute there, and maybe not like some proselytizing. You weren't doing any of that, but to some degree you were to people as men and masculinity as a whole. I think that this could be a good experience for men to watch, especially if they're going to watch this podcast, to know that this is still something that survives even in the day and age of I would say the year of our Christ, 2026, that we still have masculine men, and it's not as rare as you think. You exist, I exist, and Vic exists, and this is possible for us to exist in this day and age and not be sheep walking around that are conformist, to whatever feminist ideology that exists out there. And it's been a pleasure talking to you for sure.
No, it's been an honor, you guys, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time. So appreciate it. Yeah,
for sure, man. Any last parting words, Mark? I know you're on the Bering Sea right now, and I know that I don't know if are the waters treacherous right now, or is it calm?
No, God is smiling upon us. It's nice and calm today. It hasn't been for the last few days, but we've had actually a couple of days of really nice weather. So I'm eating it up right now because it's supposed to get really nasty the next day or two. So this is a good time. And other than parting words, that's the thing. There's as men out there, we don't need to be afraid. You don't need to think you're the only one out there. There's a lot of like-minded individuals, and now's the time, for us to come together. I mean, we are the last bastion of hope, and that doesn't mean that, it's just up to men too. It's up to women. It's time for women too to step it up their game, and men to step up their game. It's time for us as humans to, find Christ, to come together and start taking on the evils that have been, hidden behind obvious doors that we've just chosen not to see or look beyond. And if we want to survive as individuals and godly individuals, it's time for us to start, standing up and voicing our opinions and showing pride in being a Christian and, coming to a brother's aid or a sister's aid and creating that family structure, not just within your community or within your job, but globally, because that's really what all we have is just each other. And now's the time. I mean, we're literally under attack as Christians from every direction, up, down, around. And we are not a religion of peace. I mean, we've been beaten that we've been taught that we're supposed to be, but we're not, I mean, I could go and say the Crusades, people want to say about the Crusades. Well, that's only after 200 years of having our butts kicked out of us by the Muslims, then we finally got it together. We're like, okay, we've had enough. And so God himself said, if you have a cloak, sell it for a sword. So, I mean, it's time for us to actually step up and be Christians and be leaders and guide our brothers and sisters, in the right direction and take on this evil that they're trying to overcome us with, because that's just not what we do as men. As men, we survive, we persevere, and we push through. So that's all I can say.
Wow, that's awesome.
Man.
I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't even know how to follow that up. That was just insane. Mark, that was just insane. W's for sure in the chat if anybody else is watching. This has been a very impactful episode 3 of Woke Autopsy with the celebrity guest, Mark Sehlbach. That's how you say your last name, right?
Yep, Sehlbach. Like Sehlbach. I sold it back to you.
Sehlbach, yes, for sure. Me and my co-host, matter of fact, I'm just going to do the outro myself. Vic, you can do an outro. I am Martae Ruelas, host of On the Edge. This has been another episode of Woke Autopsy, and my guest, Cool Vic.
Yeah, I am Cool Vic, and I host the YouTube channel Cool Vic, KEWL1C. And so, yeah, conservative trying to fight the culture war here. So it was a pleasure talking to such a based guy like Mark here.
And I'm Mark Sehlbach, star of the Deadliest Catch, and just Bering Sea crab boat captain. And just wanted to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak my opinion, and for you guys to be waging this war against everything, and just carrying on the good fight. So thanks, Vic. Thanks, Martae. I really appreciate the time, you guys.
Yeah, we'll have plenty more conversations outside of here, by the way, Mark, because there's more questions I have to ask. Plus, we got to bullshit a little bit more, too, outside of here. There's a lot of bullshit we got to. But, yeah, man, everybody else tune into next week's episode. We have another mystery celebrity guest. You guys have seen him on TV growing up. Action hero. This is going to be another stellar podcast as well, too. Probably not going to be as based as this one, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's a high bar.
This is probably top tier out of a 1 in 10 as far as based. This is like a 15 right here. So I'm just going to say that right now. But Mark, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk soon. Everybody else, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we are out. And also, lastly, I'll say this: Christ is God. That's it.
Amen.
Christ is God. All right, Mark, I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, see you guys.
All right, take care.
Later, Mark.
You too.
Yeah, that was a good episode, man.
That was, man. I really liked him. That was good,
Yeah, we're still live, but we're gonna have some after panel talk with just ourselves. Yeah, I knew Mark would be extremely based when it came to this. I've had conversations with him before. There are other celebrities that I know that I talked to. They're not as based as Mark, so I have to kind of hold my tongue. But I'm glad I told you Mark was going to be one of the people I brought up that's not going to hold his tongue. He's like extremely blunt and he's got a no bullshit mentality. So.
You know, you're talking about how you first met him around a campfire. How did this campfire come about?
Oh man, we're kind of a bit of an outdoorsman kind of people. I knew him through a friend. I'll just say that. Remember, he kept talking about our familiar friend.
Yeah,
that guy's kind of a bit of a rebel. I'll just say that, and it's like he has to be around men like Mark or men like me, because other than that, this guy would, I don't know how to describe him to say that, but Mark's a very interesting person. But when I around this campfire, we just met, and it's like, you're talking about like based ass men that would probably kill you with their bare hands. I was surrounded by people that were either special forces or ex-special forces. And Mark was like one of those people too. And then I was a pro athlete who worked for the federal government at the time. And I had men around me that could probably kill you with their bare hands, things like this. I'm one of those guys, Mark would tell you, I could run through a brick wall if my coach told me to do that. I think that when you surround yourself with men like this who are extremely based, you're going to meet other men that are like this. We attract these kind of people around us. So we kind of self-filter ourselves. But this campfire was arranged at some nondescript location in the mountains, near the mountains, where a lot of people, and it was like, I'll even tell you this. Do you know about the legend of the Superstition Mountains? People come up missing. It's almost like haunted to some degree. They tell you to never go there without guides or anything like that. It's very treacherous and extremely dangerous for you to even go there. Well, we were there. It's like you don't want to go near this area at night because you could damn near come up missing. People go hunting for the lost Dutchman's mind or this gold. There's like legends about this, and there's also warnings. Don't go in there by yourself. Yeah. Well, of course, I'm going to be close to there. And people like Mark's going to be close to there. We're all going to meet up. And all the men that are around there, it's like, no, whatever threat's there better be afraid of a group of men like us. And Mark was one of these people. And it's like, so I'm in certain groups where we're with these men who are either celebrities or well-known people, or they're current pro athletes in other industries and stuff like that, and we meet. This isn't like some Illuminati thing, but it's just like men that are just no other men that are like-minded like this. I'll just say that. Hopefully that answers your question without saying too much.
Okay. All right. So Illuminati. All right. Got it.
We formed our own Illuminati. We'll just say that. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it was really really fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed it, So that was good stuff, Martae.
Yeah, I wanted to, for the show, I want to bring on celebrities who may not even share our own worldview, to be honest. I just want to bring them on because I just want to hear their worldview and kind of like us hear the polarizing contrast of maybe our own views. I think it's good for the show. I think that sometimes when you bring people on that you just agree with, I think it just creates an echo chamber. And I don't want that for our show. That's kind of like not to be a sloganeering factory over here, but I want whatever would be their based views on, and which may not even represent the ideas of our show that we have, that we're going to be co-hosts of. But these are people of notoriety, of maybe they think they're substantive. Maybe they don't. Who knows? But these are people that we've seen growing up. Maybe we've seen them on the silver screen. Maybe we've heard music that they produced, things like that. But these are the people that we're going to have on. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because for me to think about bringing on the show, I wanted to break free from integrating and interacting with people like the Panelverse, people like that. Dare I say these names that shall not be mentioned because to be honest with you, I'm bringing on people that these people wouldn't even be seen in a room with. They couldn't even have access to. This isn't me showing off or being flamboyant to some degree, but I'm just saying, like, I think that if I have access to these people, a readiness at the helm of my phone, and I could just send them text, why not have them on and integrate like new blood into the show and people that people wouldn't normally hear a conversation with. Mark's a really fascinating guy. And in order for you to have a conversation with him, you'd have to go through, well, no longer then, but you have to go through his agent or somebody like that. And when I have his number, met with this guy several times, there are other celebrities that I meet. I've been to their houses or been to parties with them and things like this. I don't have to go to agents. Why not bring him on the show? And that's what that was my idea to bring you on, Vic, is because you're good at commentary. You're good at having discussions. And also we share the same worldview, but also I know that you know how to wiggle out of an optics nightmare should a celebrity put you in it, like in some quandary as far as questions and things like that. I know you know how to navigate your way through a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. That actually brings me to my next question, because before we went on air, you were talking about certain celebrities that we might possibly have on that is pretty much ideology wise are going to be the complete opposite. And you're like, well, as long as they don't bring up these things, but what if they do? How do you think we should handle that on the show? Like, you know,
I don't obviously. No, I don't know. I don't want to spoil that one of the guests, but he's coming out with another movie, and I'm trying not to spoil this guest, but we've seen him. I don't even want to say the genre. We'll just say action adjacent, and he's very relevant. He's extremely liberal. I would say, I'm probably going to clip this, mind you, so that way he doesn't see this. Suffers from borderline Trump derangement syndrome. So some of these celebrities, when we talk to them, this is just me from the top of my head, we're probably going to have to let them go off and spout their truth. And then just listen to this. I don't want to say, you're wrong. You know, I disagree with you, and then have a debate. I want to say, okay, that's how you feel. How did you arrive at this conclusion? You know, things like this. Okay, cool. Well, moving on in the industry, what else did you experience? You know, things like that. As much as I want to, as a debater, challenge them.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't want to run them off of the show. This guy's, so in his series, he just filmed part 3. And part of the stabby jabby period, they had a film during that too. And me and him were talking, and I sent you the text between me and him. We were talking, and he said, well, we're wrapping up with the 3rd installment of this movie, and we have like the 4th one coming out. And I was talking to him. Some of the conversation, like, I had to like hold my tongue a little bit, because I was like, I don't want to scare him off. I want him to be on the show. So celebrities like this, that's just one of many examples of some of the celebrities I've talked to where I'm like, oh man, either their schedules are really busy. One of the guests I want to have on just got off with Joe Rogan. That's not too much of a hint, because Joe Rogan has people all the time.
Andrew Wilson, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's not Andrew Wilson. He could be one of the guests on the show, but he's one of the people that's pretty based. He does action movies all the time. Vic, you know who it is, without spoiling the name. But it's like he's got like 2 other movies coming out, and he's busy with family. So a lot of the celebrities that we have on, the hardest thing, as far as me being one of the producers of the show, I'll call myself a producer, whatever, I'll call you even a producer, is finding time to schedule these people, because not only are they busy during filming because they're still active celebrities, but it's tough bringing them on, because I may have to even separate these segments on a different channel, have it on, because if some of these woke people look through my catalog and the debates I've held, they're probably going to say, hell no, I'm not going to be on that show, because so I'm probably going to have to separate this. The next guest is the music group that he was in, one of the group guests has been all over the radio. You've heard this guy's songs all the time. This isn't somebody that you know, but I'll message you about it. But I've also done his like meal plan, his training and stuff. I've also trained people like Carrot Top. That's also in somebody else. I'm spoiling that.
Are you the reason? Are you the reason why he's so jacked, Carrot Top?
There's photos of me and him, and like his legs need work. It's just bad. It's horrific. He's top heavy, but so I've trained actually celebrities too, and done all this stuff too. So I don't know if he'll be on. He's got like a residency in Vegas. He's super busy. I messaged him, and it's gosh, and plus he's a spaz. So, but I'm going to try to bring on the next celebrity guest, which is going to be a little bit easier. But that's the toughest thing dealing with is their schedules, their management, things like this. It's going to be hard to bring them on. But I have UFC fighter that may be on as well too, especially another fighter as well too, but that's going to be on a future episode. So there's like a whole arrangement of celebrities, pro athletes, even people in politics that I may have on too, that you've seen on TV before too. So it's going to be an interesting schedule that we have that I'm going to put together in the Discord. I'll tell you who's coming on, but I'm not telling everybody else. The reason why I don't want to announce this and keep it a mystery on YouTube is because my channel's been under attack by the verse. Yeah. I'll say that. Yeah. And I don't want to kind of say, well, this celebrity is going to be on. We're going to dox this channel or bombard this with a lot of hate. And that's the reason why we have why I don't announce the celebrity guests that are going to be on the show.
Oh, that makes sense. I was curious to why you didn't, but that makes a lot of sense, because you're risking, chasing them off or getting them harassed themselves. And I get it.
Yeah, so I also don't want to run them off because if I was like adjacent to Panelverse stuff and being attacked with all these hit pieces and stuff, Mark doesn't want to be involved in any of that stuff, man. People like the person in the next movie that's coming out of this series, he doesn't want to be involved in this. There are other celebrities that even in the music industry that don't want to be involved in the Panelverse nonsense. They don't know who Sarah the Raging Tomato is. They don't know but they know who I am because I get texts from them directly and stuff, and I have access to all these people. And that's how I arrived at the conclusion of like, how do we bring something new to YouTube? Oh, I get it. These people that they normally wouldn't be caught dead in a room with because they don't even have access to it, bring them on the podcast and have interesting conversations with these celebrities and people. And that's what I wanted to do, is bring something fresh to YouTube. And that's why I came up with the show. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this by myself. I want to at least have somebody that can give me a break if I got to take a piss or something bad and have some commentary. Yeah. You are the perfect ideal candidate for this, Vic. So it's been a pleasure co-hosting this series with you on our third episode. I think our first episode we had on was like a World War debate.
World War III, yeah. World War debate, yeah.
World War debate, and to me, I'll call him a celebrity guest because he's had Anna Kasparian on and all these other people with their debates, and I don't know where that's going from now on, but I think I can say this. I think I'm going to be one of the people interviewing the people leading the stage on World War debate. That's been announced. I think it's okay for me to announce that. So I'm going to be one of the people interviewing like the Joe Rogan, because he was like, you're a pro athlete and all this other stuff, and you have the way that you look and the image and visages you have, so that's going to be happening. I don't know. But moving forward, I'll just say that's all I'll say. And then our second, we were going to have Lee Priest, he's a damn near legend, a celebrity. Yeah. Instead, because he had some tech difficulties, we had two legends of the sport on, and then we're going to have other legends from other sports on, and maybe even active people in the sport. Well, one of them's out of the country. He can still get on. I think I mentioned him in the Discord as well, too. That pro athlete's still competing right now in the UFC. We're going to have him on. So I really want to mention who's going to be. It's really,
I know, man. It's hard, because Martae messages me, and I'm like, holy shit. And I would love to say, yeah, they're looking at this person, that person, but then it's like, we don't want to ruin the surprise. It also might fall through. But if you knew some of the names, they're not just like, they're like big names. Some of the ones Martae's brought up to me, and I'm like, holy shit! If we were to have this person or that person, I'm like, that would be huge. So there's some big things going on. This is not a show to miss out on or sleep on. We're gonna, if these things go through, like, you're gonna be seeing some big guests here on this show.
Yeah, and Vic's right about that. Some of these guests that you're going to see on the show, you're just going to be like, holy shit, how did Martae get access to that person? Because I just saw him on the red carpet like last week. Well, I know a lot of these people from being in 2 world-class sports. So, and that's how I got access to this. And I was a personal trainer and nutritionist to a lot of these people too. So yeah, I mean, that's just my deal. So I don't know. I don't call myself a celebrity, even though if I look in the podcast industry or debate industry, there's nobody that's an active pro athlete that's debating people because I don't know, one trick pony, maybe. I don't know. Not me though.
Man.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah, brother. Well, man, this is another successful show. I can't wait to see what next week brings.
I'll message you who's coming on. You're gonna you're gonna know who this is because you're gonna need to do your research on this, probably on this person, ask him questions as well too, as will I. I'm gonna ask him a lot of questions too. I so want to say who it's gonna be.
Yeah,
you're
I know,
not gonna
man.
do that much research because damn it. All right, I'm just gonna plead the Cinco right now and just keep moving.
Plead the Cinco.
Yeah, I'm gonna plead the Cinco. That's it, man. Anyways, this has been another great episode, man. Another successful episode. The celebrity guest that we're going to have on next is it's gonna be crazy. So, all right, man. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my evening, man, and wrap this up. So, any last words, Vic, for the audience out there?
Yeah, I just I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Tune in next week to see what the Woke Autopsy brings. You're not going on missing. Big things coming up.
Yeah. You guys are gonna be shocked with who I'm gonna bring on the podcast. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna plead the Cinco and move on. You guys have a great night, and Christ is God.
Christ is God. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, did you enjoy that video? I hope you did. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe, or else you're gay. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. I'm just trying to save you from sin. Also, make sure you catch the KEWL stream live Mondays through Fridays right here on my YouTube channel, and make sure you follow me at any of these links down below for everything KEWL Vic.